Today I'm gonna show you how to make progressive house in the style of Colorize and Anjunadeep. And what really defines this kind of house music is that it's quite melodic and a bit softer, but still very emotional and dance friendly. And I will be showing you this by going through my own track called Try Again, which actually was released on Colorize a few months ago. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Here's the track, and I will play you part of the track just so you get a sense of how it sounds. Yeah, you get the idea here. I will start by going through the drums, I think, which I usually think is the most important part of the track. The drums sounds like this on its own. I'll just play the drum section. When I'm making drums in this kind of style, because as I mentioned before, it's quite soft and melodic, but you still want it to be a bit energetic and, dance friendly. So it's quite a balance to have it still kind of driving, but not too much, because you don't want to make it sound like, big room, like a main stage EDM track. And usually the way I do this is to have a good balance between like small and tight elements and a bit more open and like reverby elements. So for instance, I can play you the hi-hat section, which sounds like this. So this is very basic, as you can hear. It's a quite short open hi-hat. And then we have like just normal shakers sounding like this. They're quite tight, to really make room for everything else. Because if I would have like a big loose shaker with a lot of reverb and very wide, the song might sound like too big. So I try to keep the drums pretty tight and small in that sense. And I've used Logic's enveloper, which is kind of a transient shaper, just control the release a little bit to make it even more tighter. Moving on to the clap section. Again, here it's nothing crazy. It's just one clap sounding like this. Almost like a 909 clap. Very easy, you can hear it's almost in mono. And on top of that, I'm adding a second layer. And here I'm trying to think of what new I want to bring to the clap section. I don't want to add just a additional clap layer which sounds exactly the same as the first one. I want to think that I want to add something new. And what I thought that this clap was missing was a bit of width and also a bit of that like pre-shifted feeling. And as you can see here, these claps are not perfectly aligned. And the second clap sounds like this. Also quite short and tight, but they are not perfectly aligned, as you can see here. And this is way more pre-shifted, which you can see here. It's not exactly on the grid. Neither is this, but this is even more pre-shifted. So all in all, the clap sounds like this. And as you can hear, each clap, each layer has its own purpose in the mix. And after that, I've added what I think is like the most important part of the drum section, because this part here, this is like what you would typically hear and think about, and what's really like gives the energy and the overall like drum feeling. But just this on its own would sound too boring, and it wouldn't be enough to be signed to a label such as Anjunadeep or Colorize. So what you want to add is like some kind of mid section, and really what you want to do is to bring that kind of percussion melody. And what I mean with the percussion melody is that you have something in the drum rhythm which is rememberable, you know, like just hats, shakers and claps, and maybe an easy bongo or something. That's not enough to make people remember the drum rhythm. So you want something distinct and something unique, you know, that's quite easy to remember, but still quite unique. Just the way as you would think like a normal melody. So this is how the drum melody sounds like. You know, not something crazy. And together with the drums, it sounds like this. Boom. So the drum melody here, and it plays the same throughout the whole track, is boom, bum, 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 boom, boom, bum. Yeah, very easy, but it really makes the trick here. It's the combination of an easy rhythm, but quite a unique sound. And the sounds that I've been using here is, first of all, this kind of laser sound. I think I found it on Splice. Not something crazy. Without an effect, it sounds like this. And I've just done some EQing, the lows and highs, and then I put the decapitator, which is a distortion. And this is kind of my go-to thing when I want to like mess up a sound. I remove the high frequencies, and then I put on a decapitator, usually the decapitator or some kind of distortion, just to bring out some of the high frequencies again and create some kind of harmonics. And then I have just some delay, which I think, yeah, it's not even turned on. So it's basically these two here, nothing crazy. And then I have another effect here, which is just the same kind of laser sound. And I have some delay on it. Not much, but just a little bit. And then I have this sound here, which is nothing crazy, you know, just a sound. I've done some EQing, the lows and highs here as well. And then we have a perk loop, which sounds like this. And this is more of a hi-hat loop, so probably I would have it over here. But you can see it's some percussion sounds. And this is really, you don't really hear this, but this is a great way of adding up or filling up those like empty spaces. So this is something I add like in the end of the track. So usually the way I go when I'm making like the drums is that I start with making like an easy drum pattern with the claps and hi-hats, and I don't worry about the sounds too much. And then I start building what I call the drum melody to really make like the drum groove. And once I have everything in place, if I still think that something is missing, that's where I start to adding like additional top loops. And I keep the top loops pretty low in the mix, just to, it's just, you know, some extra flavor. And this perk loop here would be an example of a top loop which I'm having. And you can see it's minus 2 decibels here, but it's actually a stem from another song. So the stem on its own is very low in volume. I think it plays like, yeah, minus 20 dB, so it's very low. So again, nothing crazy, but it's still, you know, kind of unique, and that's what you want, because it's easy to just make your drums sounding like this, and then just leave it like this. But this doesn't cut it, you know, this is not unique enough, because what really makes a track sound expensive is within the drums, I would say, and really pay attention to all kind of details. And what really makes the drums feel special and expensive is to add like this kind of mid percussions here. And it doesn't need to be like weird laser sounds like this. It can be conga or bongos or any kind of percussion, but you really want to make it, you know, so you can really remember the melody. And you really want to hear it. And later on in the track, to really give some more energy, I put some more percussion here. And this is just like a little bit of a, you know, kind of unique sound. And what really makes the drums feel special and expensive is within the drums, I would say, and really pay attention to all kind of details. And what really makes the drums feel special and expensive is to add like this kind of mid percussions here. And it doesn't need to be like weird laser sounds like this. It can be conga or bongos or any kind of percussion, but you really want to make it, you know, so you can really remember the melody. And later on in the track, to really give some more energy, and this is a good and quite common trick. And this is pretty much just a 909 ride, which I've added on the offbeat. And I had some tremolo here, which is like an auto pan. And it's not a lot, but you can see it's 12%, so it gives a little bit of variation between left and right. I have an enveloper here, but I'm not using it. Yeah, I do. I'm increasing the attack to make it a little bit more clicky here. So it's a little bit more of the transient. I love enveloper, this transient shaper, it's great for that. And then I'm using LFO tool. And basically I'm sidechaining the sound because it's already on the offbeat. You can see here where the magic happens. And this is just so I make sure it doesn't ring out for too long, basically. So here I'm shaping the sound a little bit here. And I'm using a reverb, which is not turned on now, but usually what I do is that I automate the reverb, and I do it in the second drop here to really like increase the energy towards the end of the track and make it like ring out. So yeah, that's the drums basically, nothing crazy, but enough to really carry the track forward. And oh yeah, just quickly what I've done on the actual drum bus, because I always route all my drums to a drum bus, and I think you should do also, because it's a great way of controlling the drums. And in the end, when you're doing the final mix down, maybe you want to increase the volume of the overall drums with a few decibels, or maybe you want to make it lower, then it's a great way. And if you want to like process the drums as a whole, it's also a great way of doing that. So you can see here I have increased the whole drum bus with 1 decibel, and it's much easier instead of going in individually and adjusting everything, of course. And this is my go-to drum processing. I'm using Bloom and the drum bus preset. And this is like a dynamic multi-band compressor. And this is great. I use it especially on drums actually. And you can see what it does. It is affecting the mid part here and also like the high part a little bit. And then I'm using an enveloper. And probably, yeah, because what I'm like doing is that in the beginning of the track, usually I have the drums a little bit more tighter in the intro, and then an enveloper is great. So I control the release time a little bit, not a lot, you know, and especially like at this section here, when I'm filtering everything down, I want to control the release time of the whole drums basically, and I'm doing that with this transient shaper here. Just a great tool. Okay, let's move on. So what we can take a look at next is the bass section here. And the bass section here, and it looks a little bit weird because I bounced the bass into an audio track. So I'm using a combination of MIDI and audio, and this is because originally this track was a collaboration, but it ended up being an original track by me instead. So a few of these instruments are audio tracks, but basically the bass sounds like this. Nothing crazy. But what it is, and I can show you this part here, it's actually a silent preset. Nobody really uses silent anymore, but I think it's great still for some kind of instrument. And this is just a preset from the original pack where you get when you buy silent. It's the 209 heavy Moog bass. And without any processing, it sounds like this. But then I'm adding, and here you can see I'm removing this sub because I'm having the sub in another layer, but this is how it sounds. And what I've done is that I have a transient shaper, an enveloper again, just to increase the attack. I could have done this within silent, but I like using this one. Direction mix, just to control the stereo image just a little bit. I don't want it entirely in mono. I'm having this sub layer and making sure it's all in mono, but since this is the layer which is above around 100 Hertz, this doesn't need to be all in mono. So as you can see here, I'm just making a little bit more in the center with this direction mixer. Bit crusher, it's very little, but just to bring out some of that like crispiness. Bloom, again, to really start shaping the sound. I'm using this add grit to 808. It really to bring out like the mid part, to really add some grit to it. And this is basically because you've seen it wants to affect the low end here, but I'm taking away a lot of that low end either way. So an enveloper again to really control the release time, because sometimes when you're adding a bit crusher and other instrument, it can create this like almost like reverb tails, which I want to control. So that's why I'm adding this enveloper again afterwards. I'm using in this case the bit crusher, and then flanger, which it's not turned on now, but I think this is not even being used. And then LFO tool for the side chaining. So this is basically how I created this one, and then I exported it into audio. And again, I've added a bit more things here. Enveloper again to control it even more. Bit crusher again. Some filters just for automation. Track spacer. This is, yeah, exactly. I have the bass side chained to this percussion here. So when this tum tum percussion hits, the bass ducks a little bit, just to make room for the percussion, as you can see here. Yeah. And flanger again, I think I'm automating. No, I'm not even using it. Yeah. So nothing crazy again, but it's really makes the job here. Moving on, let's take a look at maybe the most interesting and important part of the track, which is the synths. And before we go into the main leads, let's take a look at the ambient pads and all the like ear candies, because they are making a big impact on this song. And in general, you really want to pay attention to these kind of sounds. So the ambient pads part sounds like this. It really gives something. And you can see here, it's mostly audio clips. And it's just a bunch of different synth layers. For this, for instance. And like, let's say, Atmos here, for instance. This is just like, what I've done is, let me see, I think I have it here. Yeah, so it's like this here is a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ambient pads, which I created with a contact patch. I think it's from Oliver Arnold's Composer Toolkit, and it's very CPU heavy, so I always bounce it to audio. You can see it sounds like this, and I have this to a pad group where I have all kind of different like reverb and crystallize, you know, to really make it sound interesting. Some pitch drift to give some like variation in the pitch. Yes, you know, you want to like add stuff to give more movement to the track basically. And then what I've done, I've combined all of these pads into my own like Atmo pad layer, which sounds like this. And then I have like a lot of like ear candy sounds like this. And basically the way I've done this is that I've taken, let me see here, and this is all the tracks that I've hidden that I'm not using in the end product. So basically what I've done is, let me see if I can find them. So here, for instance, let's take a listen at this. Oh, maybe this one here. Yeah. So this, I don't remember exactly, but probably I took like the lead sound or ARP sound or something. And I'm using Portal, which is a great plugin to create like ear candies. And I just scroll through a bunch of presets. I'm probably using, you know, this is number 6. I'm probably using like 10 or 15 different versions. So I'm just adding like a random preset, and then I'm exporting like a 30-second part of that one. And then I do it again and again and again with different presets. And then I listen to all of them and see if I found something interesting. And here I found like, okay, this sounds kind of interesting. And then I'm adding like some, sorry, the portal shouldn't be turned on. So I'm adding some EQ, and I'm adding this crystallizer, which makes this really cool effect here. And then some like reverb, some tremolo to give some like auto panning pretty much. And I bounced a bunch of sounds, and then it together becomes like this ear candy part here. Yeah, and this is the same way, you know. And that's how I create this kind of ear candy sounds. I just try a bunch of different presets. And then I'm having a lot of these sounds like this ARP, like here. And this is also like just a preset which sounds like this. It's from Spire. And then I just bounced it. I'm using it as an audio. With a filter on it, of course. So again, nothing crazy. Also, what I think is very important is that I have like these strings here to really build tension throughout the track. So something like this. And this is also just some strings from Contact. And I've added some pitch drift, and quite a lot, to really give some movement within the pitch. And this plays out throughout like almost the whole track. You can really hear it. You can see it's a lot of different melodic elements to really make it sound interesting. And I actually have a video, which I'm gonna link here somewhere, where I talk about how you can keep like a pretty boring and repetitive melody to keep it interesting. And this is exactly how to do it. You do it by, not by adding a lot of new stuff within the melody, but you add a lot of like melodic variations, like melodic ear candies and little like add melodies and stuff to really keep making it interesting. And this is another example of it. I'm having like small melodies like this. You can see this is just a serum preset, nothing weird, nothing crazy. With some delay from Serum FX, some reverb, and some filter. And also that's usually a good idea to have a filter, and usually not have it above like 1,000 or 2,000 hertz, because it shouldn't like overpower the main melody here. So it's usually have it quite floaty, quite spacey, so quite a lot of reverb on it, and quite a lot high cut also to keep it really controlled. And here's another ear candy sound. Same way. And then comes the main lead sound, which sounds like this. So, you know, it's a quite easy melody. It's very happy, very uplifting, and quite repetitive, you know. And that's the way you want it, pretty much, to make like a catchy melody. You want it to be quite repetitive, and you want to give like some kind of variations here and there to keep it interesting. And also, if I would have just this melody without any like ear candy, add melodies and like ambient pads and stuff, this melody, even though it's quite interesting, it wouldn't work on its own. So you should definitely watch my video about keeping a boring melody interesting, pretty much, because I really talk a little bit more in depth how to think about when making melodies within this kind of genres. So this is a Serum preset, and I've done some processing within Serum also, but the magic is really within all of these instruments here. I'll just remove this to make everything easy. So without any processing, it sounds like this. You know, quite boring, to be honest. So what I've done, EQ, it's just something easy, but I'm removing a bit of the body because I thought it was a little bit too heavy, like this mid part here. And then I'm using a limiter just to control the loudness a bit. And here is where the magic starts to happen. So I'm adding a decapitator quite a lot. You know, it really starts to distort the sound and making it a bit more interesting. And here's the thing, what I told you about before, I usually like to add some kind of transient shaper or something after I put on a decapitator or some kind of distortion, just to control the sound again. Because it usually creates this like tails, almost like reverb tails, which I don't want. So here I use the enveloper to increase the attack a little bit and also control the release a little bit. I'm using Serum FX to give delay. I really like the delay from Serum FX. And the reason why I'm using Serum FX and not because I'm using Serum for the synth, but I want the delay to not be affected by the decapitator and the enveloper in this case. I want it to come afterwards, pretty much. So that's why I'm using like this. And then to start controlling the sound, I'm having a filter. And this opens up and closes throughout the track. As you can see here. And then I'm using a beat crusher after the filter to, even though I have a filter which controls the high frequencies of the sound, I still want some of the crisp be hearable like almost every time. So that's why I've added a beat crusher to really bring out those like high frequencies. And this is not like, it's not like I'm having some kind of rule here or something. I'm just adding a lot of stuff, and if it sounds good, it sounds good. You know, there's no rules really. Just throw in stuff that you think sounds cool and just be sure that you're not adding stuff and not really know why you're adding them. Like in terms of, you don't want to add like 5 sounds that sounds all the same. But as long as it sounds cool, just adding stuff and play around. So beat crusher, EQ here, because we've really created a lot of like low frequencies with the decapitator and beat crusher and stuff. So I always like to add a EQ again. Because you can see here, we don't want like these frequencies here. This is entirely created by the distortion plugin, the decapitator. So let's remove that one. I'm using Soothe to control the sound and remove some of that like harsh frequencies. You can see it's not doing a lot, but just a little bit, just cleaning it up. A full tool for sidechain. And I'm using this later on for like automations and making like it's more interesting. And the same here, I'm automating the reverb at some parts. And what more? Yeah, I can show you like the final drop. Because pretty much what I'm doing is that I'm having this melody playing throughout the whole track. And to really keep it interesting, you want to really keep those kind of ear candies in mind, those like additional melodies, and also play around with the filter and all of that to really like keep the energy going and keep it interesting, even though you're pretty much having the same melody and the same like chord progression all the time. See here, it still plays, but here it filters down together with the drums. The drums are also filtering down. You can see the main here it is. The ARP melody is still playing. And here I'm automating the downsampling on the beat crusher. You know, to give some cool effect, you know. And here I'm building it up again. Some snare rolls. Here I'm slowly filters up the drums again. I think I've done it individually, yeah, like here. And what I've done to really make the second drop hit a bit harder than the last drop, than the first drop, is that I've added 303 bass ARP pretty much. And this is nothing new, nothing crazy, and this is very easy actually. I've just used, this is literally the first preset within Silent 1. And it sounds like this. I played around a little bit with the ARP melody here, like the pattern, to make it fit the melody better. And then I play around a little bit with the filter, as you can see here. But more than that, it's nothing. There's some EQ, so obviously we don't want it to interfere with the bass, so I'm removing the sub part here. Some side chaining and some filtering. So I'm playing around with the filter, external filter, and then I'm playing around with the cutoff filter knob here within Silent. You know, it gives some more energy. And this is like what I talked about in the beginning, that it's quite energetic and uplifting, but it's also quite, you know, soft, chill at the same time. So you really want to keep like this balance in mind, because even though this is the final drop, the climax, for instance, if you listen at the chords here, these are not like super open, super reverb. It opens up sometimes, but then it closes again. So it's still kind of, you know, easy and quite like soft. And then like, so you want to have like a high energy within the drums, and like the melody itself should be like energetic, but the sounds itself should be kind of soft and kind of like tamed pretty much. And it's a balance between that, because if you're making it too mellow and too soft, it's getting like more of like this, like the melodic house kind of style, like Lane 8, or like, you know, that kind of like more chill, maybe Ben Böhmer kind of style. And if you're making it like too big with all the sounds, it's getting too much into that, you know, main stage, like Nicky Romero, Martin Garrix's kind of style. So you want to have like a good balance in between. And a good way to think of that is like you have some sounds which is kind of quite big, but maybe like if you have like the synths which is quite big, maybe you want the drums to be a bit more like closed, or the other way around. So that's just a way of thinking about it. I think that's pretty much it. It's a quite easy track, but I actually did a lot of work on it, and I think I did like 15 different versions, and I actually did an Instagram post explaining the whole process about it, how it got signed to Colorize and all of that. So I can link it here below if you want to see it. It's actually quite a funny story. I did so many different versions, and basically I was trying again and again and again, and that's why I'm calling the track Try Again. So yeah, you can look it down below if you want to. And if you want some guidance and you think that these videos aren't enough, I'm actually doing mentorship and coaching. So you can check the link down below for more information about that. And yeah, if you need to know anything, if you want me to show you something more in depth, just comment down below or reach out to social media. I'm always happy to help. And until next time, have a wonderful day.